They told you these were the dream machines, the best of the best. But just one season in, the truth starts to leak through the paint. High price tags, flashy specs, and broken promises. Today we're exposing 7 motorcycles that get way too much hype and leave riders disappointed. Number 7. Kawasaki Z900. Not every motorcycle makes a lasting impression. Some roar into your memory, daring you to forget them. Others quietly fade into the background, never quite bad enough to complain about, but never good enough to crave. This one falls squarely into that second category. It arrives with a bold look, an enticing spec sheet, and a surprisingly affordable price tag. But after a few hundred miles, most riders start asking the same question. Why doesn't this thing feel special? There is no denying that on paper this middleweight looks like a winner. It's got big power, aggressive lines, and carries the badge of a trusted Japanese brand. But beneath the styling lies a bike that's trying to be everything to everyone and ends up exciting no one. It's too soft for thrill seekers, too heavy for nimble city riders, and too basic for tech lovers. It's a bike that people don't usually hate, but also one they don't keep. At the heart of the Z900 is a 948 cubic centimeter liquid-cooled inline 4-cylinder engine that produces 125 horsepower and 72 pound-feet of torque. It's mated to a 6-speed transmission with a relatively tall final drive ratio, which leans toward relaxed highway cruising rather than aggressive acceleration. The curb weight lands at just over 470 pounds, making it noticeably heavier than sharper rivals like the Yamaha MT-09 or KTM Duke 990. Suspension consists of a conventional non-adjustable telescopic fork up front and a horizontal backlink monoshock in the rear, neither of which offer the kind of customization or stiffness performance riders crave. Braking is handled by dual 300mm front discs with axial-mounted 4-piston calipers and a single rear disc. Safety features include basic anti-lock braking and traction control, but lack modern systems like lean-sensitive braking or dynamic ride modes. The seat height is 30.1 inches, fuel capacity is 4.5 gallons, and stock tires are basic OEM-grade compounds that most riders swap out immediately. Pricing sits around $9,000, making it an appealing option for budget-conscious riders, but that savings comes with trade-offs in tech, performance, and long-term ownership experience. And then there's the riding position, stuck in a no-man's land between upright commuter and sport bike crouch. It's not uncomfortable, but it's not inspiring either. Tall riders often complain about cramped knees and limited cockpit space. Shorter riders struggle to get confident footing. The mirrors buzz at high revs, the clutch feel is vague, and the dashboard feels like it's straight out of the last decade. Most riders describe their time with the Z900 the same way. It's a stepping stone, a bike they bought, used, and then traded in as soon as they discovered something more exciting, more comfortable, or more capable. And in today's hyper-competitive middleweight segment, that's a hard position to recover from. The Z900 isn't broken, it's just boring. And in a world filled with wild triples, torque-rich twins, and razor-sharp electronics, that might be the most unforgivable sin of all. But if speed is more, your ting wait until you hear about the next bike. Number 6. BMW S1000 Rams. This is supposed to be one of the most elite motorcycles ever built. On paper, it dominates. On the track, it's blisteringly fast. But in the real world, the experience falls flat. The BMW S1000RR has become the poster child for sterile performance. It's so clinically engineered, so obsessively refined, that it forgets the one thing every rider craves: emotion. It doesn't ignite your instincts, it just calculates. At the core of the S1000RR is a 999 cubic centimeter inline 4-cylinder engine delivering a staggering 205 horsepower and 83 pound-feet of torque. It's paired with a 6-speed gearbox, slipper clutch, and a bi-directional quick-shifter for race-style performance. The bike weighs approximately 434 pounds wet, making it competitive in the superbike class, but not class-leading. Suspension is handled by a fully electronic semi-active dynamic damping control system, responsive and adjustable but known to be fragile under long-term road stress. Braking duties are managed by dual 4-piston calipers on 320mm discs in the front and a single rear disc, all governed by BMW's ABS Pro and cornering-sensitive braking logic. Tech-wise, the bike features a 6.5-inch TFT display, multiple ride modes, wheelie control, launch control, cruise control, dynamic traction management, and electronic engine braking. Fuel capacity is 4.4 gallons, and seat height stands at 32.4 inches. The base model starts near $17,000, but fully spec'd out, it approaches $25,000. And that's where the problems start. For that kind of money, you expect not just performance, you expect passion. But instead of heart-pounding rawness, the BMW gives you controlled power delivery that often feels more like remote control than rider engagement. Traction control, wheelie control, and ABS are all excellent, until they aren't. Riders have reported tech glitches, software bugs, and electronic gremlins that plague the riding experience. Display blackouts, ride mode freezes, and misfiring quick shifters are not rare. And worse, most of these issues can only be resolved at the dealership, meaning more downtime and more bills. Even comfort takes a hit. With its aggressive riding posture, low clip-ons, and high rear sets, this machine punishes riders over 6 feet tall. Wrist pain, back strain, and cramped legs become standard within an hour. The seat is firm, wind protection is minimal, and the whole ergonomic setup screams track use, not everyday riding. Add in BMW's restrictive break-in period, which limits your rev ceiling and power output for the first several hundred miles, and you're left wondering why you paid 5 figures to be slowed down right out of the gate. Maintenance costs add another layer of frustration. Routine service can run into the hundreds, and more advanced diagnostics require proprietary tools. Independent shops typically won't touch it, and once you're out of warranty, even minor issues can rack up big bills. The S1000RR is, without question, a technical marvel. It will set lap records. It will dominate track days. But what it won't do is make your heart race when you throw a leg over it on a quiet Sunday morning. It's fast, but forgettable. A machine made of algorithms, not adrenaline. And speaking of overhyped machines, the next one enters the hyper-naked category and promptly falls flat. Still watching? Then you already know. It's not just about power specs, it's about how a bike really rides. Drop a like if you're loving the honesty and subscribe to our channel. Number 5. Honda CB1000R. At first glance, this machine looks like it means business. Bold lines, wide stance, aggressive lighting, it fits the visual mold of a hyper-naked. But peel back the styling and things get a little confused. It wants to compete with fire-breathing torque monsters, but it plays with a silencer. It comes from Honda, a brand known for bulletproof engineering, but somehow ends up feeling more like a placeholder than a proper flagship. This is the CB1000R, polished, poised, and puzzling. There's no denying that Honda had a solid foundation. The CB1000R borrows its power plant from a previous generation CBR 1000RR. It's a 998 cubic centimeter inline-4 engine detuned for street use, producing 143 horsepower and 76 pound-feet of torque. That might have been competitive 10 years ago, but today's hyper-nakeds are pushing past 170 horsepower with punchier mid-range and rawer engine character. The CB1000R feels smooth, sure, but not thrilling. And in this segment, thrilling is table stakes. Wet weight is listed at 470 pounds, noticeably heavier than rivals like the Yamaha MT-10 or KTM Super Duke. Suspension duties are handled by a fully adjustable Showa separate function, big piston fork up front, and a single Showa monoshock in the rear. Braking is managed by dual radial-mounted 4-piston calipers biting into 310mm front discs and a 256mm disc at the rear. Electronic aids include 3 standard ride modes, basic traction control, and a full-color LCD dash. though it lacks cornering anti-lock braking, an inertial measurement unit, or electronic suspension. Fuel capacity is 4.3 gallons and seat height is approximately 32.3 inches. As of 2025, the CB1000R carries an MSRP just north of $13,000. And that's where the trouble really begins. At that price, you're deep into Yamaha MT-10 territory, a bike with more power, more features, and far more personality. Even the Triumph Street Triple undercuts the CB in price while delivering sharper performance, better electronics, and a more visceral riding experience. Compared to them, the CB1000R starts to look less like a bold street fighter and more like a dressed-up standard. The styling deserves some credit. Honda's Neo Sports Cafe design language gives it a premium sculpted aesthetic that stands out, especially in a segment often dominated by aggressive plastics and sharp angles. But the performance doesn't match the look. The ride feels soft in corners, vague when pushed, and too reserved to truly inspire confidence. The suspension soaks up bumps well enough for everyday use, but under spirited riding, the setup reveals its limitations. Comfort is decent, and the CB1000R makes for a refined commuter or weekend cruiser, but this isn't the kind of bike that stirs emotion. It's not the one you think about after you park it. It doesn't whisper just 5 more miles when the ride is over. In a class full of machines that scream for attention, the CB1000R politely waits to be noticed, and in doing so, gets overlooked. It's competent, it's clean, but when it comes to performance, attitude, and value, being not bad just isn't enough. If that seemed mild, the next bike takes performance marketing to absurd extremes, without the comfort to back it up. Number 4. Ducati Multistrada V4. It looks like a mile-munching masterpiece. Sleek lines, aggressive stance, and a spec sheet that reads like a dream for globe-trotters. But once you start living with it, the illusion fades fast. The Ducati Multistrada V4 draws you in with Italian flair and promises of versatility, power, and comfort. What it delivers, however, is a heavy, thirsty, high-maintenance machine disguised as an adventure tourer. It's not a disaster, but for a motorcycle that costs as much as a new compact car, the cracks in the armor are hard to ignore. Let's begin with the engine. The Multistrada V4 is powered by a 1,158 cubic centimeter V4 that pumps out a staggering 170 horsepower and 92 pound-feet of torque. That's superbike territory. But in an adventure touring context, it feels like bringing a chainsaw to a whittling contest. The power delivery is aggressive, borderline twitchy in low-speed environments, and totally unnecessary for the kind of technical or off-road riding the bike supposedly supports. Most owners never take it off pavement, and frankly, the bike isn't built for it. The entire bike weighs approximately 570 pounds wet. Suspension is semi-active and electronically adjustable via Ducati's Skyhook system, tuned primarily for road comfort with limited off-road range. Braking comes from top-shelf Brembo-style calipers clamping on dual 320mm discs up front and a single rear disc, offering serious stopping power, albeit more than most riders will ever need. Fuel capacity is 5.8 gallons, but thanks to the engine's appetite, real-world range hovers around 140 miles. The seat height starts at 33.1 inches, which can be intimidating for shorter riders. The base model starts at just over $22,000, while the top-tier trims push well past $30,000 with options and accessories. And then there's the heat. In warm weather or stop-and-go traffic, the rear cylinder bank roasts your inner thighs and ankles. Riders in southern states often report discomfort bordering on unbearable. Pair that with mediocre fuel range and a tall, top-heavy feel, and you've got a bike that punishes you at the exact moments when it should excel. Comfort? Only on paper. The seat is firm and unsupportive. Many riders upgrade within weeks just to endure 2-hour trips. Shorter riders struggle with the bike's height, and maneuvering it in tight spaces feels more like wrestling than riding. Maintenance is another harsh reality. This isn't just an expensive bike to buy, it's expensive to own. Valve checks, Desmo service intervals, Proprietary diagnostic tools and sensor-related repairs mean more time at the dealership and more strain on your wallet. Even basic work can feel like you're paying luxury tax just for the Ducati badge. The Multistrada Vi4 is a technical marvel in a showroom and a rocket on the freeway. But as an all-around adventure tourer, it's over-engineered, overpriced, and oversold. It wants to be everything, but ends up being too much of something most riders never asked for. But for those chasing European badges, the next so-called rugged tourer might sting even harder. Number 3. BMW 1250GS. Some motorcycles build a reputation so strong it becomes difficult to question. This is one of them. Praised endlessly in brochures, review columns, and adventure forums, this so-called king of the category promises rugged versatility, long-distance comfort, and unmatched engineering. But when you strip away the marketing and start putting in real miles, especially off-road, the shine begins to wear off. For all its praise, this heavyweight adventure bike may be trying to do too much, too stiffly for too much money. Power is not the problem. Underneath all the aluminum, plastic, and electronics sits a robust engine with the torque and credentials to back up its heritage. But its size, weight, and real-world quirks make it a surprisingly difficult companion when the pavement ends. The R1250GS is powered by a 1,254 cubic centimeter air, liquid-cooled boxer twin engine that produces 134 horsepower at 7,750 revolutions per minute and 105 pound-feet of torque at 6,250 revolutions per minute. It weighs 549 pounds wet, making it one of the heaviest bikes in the adventure touring class. Suspension consists of BMW's proprietary telelever front system with 7.5 inches of travel and a paralever rear swing arm with 7.9 inches, tuned primarily for road comfort. Braking is handled by dual 12-inch front discs and a single 10.9-inch rear disc, paired with BMW's ABS Pro system. Fuel capacity is 5.3 gallons with real-world range limited to under 200 miles, depending on riding conditions. Electronics include ride modes, cornering ABS, traction control, and dynamic suspension adjustment. The base model starts near $18,000, while fully equipped trims often exceed $22,000. Now here's where reality hits. That boxer engine is legendary, but also clunky. Throttle response at low speeds feels heavy-handed, especially in tight turns or when navigating steep trails. Combined with the bike's weight and top-heavy balance, the GS becomes a handful on anything looser than gravel. The suspension, while great for tarmac, can feel overwhelmed when pushed off-road. There's not enough give for serious trail riding, and rebound dampening can feel slow and vague. Then there's heat management. On warmer days or in slow traffic, the engine radiates substantial heat toward the rider's legs, something you'll absolutely notice during urban rides or crawling through technical terrain. The 5.3-gallon fuel tank might sound decent, but combined with the engine's thirst, the range is underwhelming for a supposed long-distance machine. Comfort also isn't guaranteed. The stock seat is often called out for its lack of support during rides over 2 hours. Taller riders complain of knee cramping, while shorter ones struggle with the high seat height, especially during parking maneuvers or uneven terrain. Electronics are another mixed bag. The GS is loaded with ride modes and adjustment features, but they don't always work harmoniously. Some riders report delayed input response or modes that feel more like presets than adaptive systems. You're riding a computer, whether you want to or not. And finally, price. Once you've crossed the $20,000 mark, expectations skyrocket. But the GS doesn't always deliver better performance than rivals like the Yamaha Tenere or Honda Africa Twin, which come in thousands cheaper with fewer complications. In the end, this isn't the all-conquering machine it claims to be. It's sophisticated, polished, and iconic, but not untouchable. And for the rider who wants true off-road adventure without a luxury tax, there are better options waiting. Up next is a machine that challenges the very notion of American touring dominance. Number 2. Harley-Davidson Street Glide ST. Spend nearly $30,000 on a motorcycle, and you expect something that feels cutting edge, something that pushes boundaries, not just checks boxes. Yet this so-called performance bagger feels more like a repackaged legacy product than a genuine contender in the modern touring class. Harley-Davidson might want you to believe this machine is born from racing heritage and muscle, but once you're in the saddle, the truth hits harder than the exhaust note. It's mostly a looker, not a performer. Aggression and styling? Absolutely. It's got dark finishes, bronze accents, and a lowered stance that screams road presence. But underneath all the cosmetic upgrades, the mechanical experience doesn't match the marketing. In fact, the ride reveals a machine trying to keep up with an industry that's passed it by. The Street Glide ST is powered by Harley's Milwaukee 8 117 cubic inch V-twin engine, which translates to 1,923 cubic centimeters. It produces approximately 106 horsepower and 126 pound-feet of torque. That torque-heavy output is paired with a 6-speed transmission and belt final drive. Curb weight comes in at 827 pounds wet, putting it among the heaviest bikes in its class. Suspension duties are handled by non-adjustable Showa forks up front and emulsion shocks with hydraulic preload adjustment in the rear. Braking is managed by dual 4-piston fixed calipers on 300mm front rotors, with a single rear rotor and floating caliper. Seat height is 27.4 inches. Fuel capacity is 6 gallons, and real-world range typically hovers around 200 miles. The Boombox GTS infotainment system includes GPS, touchscreen audio, and smartphone connectivity, but lacks Apple CarPlay or modern responsiveness. Pricing starts just above $29,000 and climbs rapidly with optional add-ons. Once you get rolling, the problems start to stack up. The weight makes low-speed maneuvering feel clumsy, while limited cornering clearance turns twisty roads into a workout. The suspension, while stiffer than standard touring Harleys, still bottoms out too easily on uneven pavement. And though the dual front brakes are adequate, they're far from class-leading, especially on a bike this heavy, this fast, and this expensive. Comfort is hit or miss. The seat is firm and supportive enough for short stints, but on long rides it lacks contouring and shock absorption. The suspension tuning leans towards sporty but sacrifices ride quality. Meanwhile, the clutch, though hydraulic, has an uncomfortably stiff pull, which turns traffic riding into wrist torture. Engine heat radiates aggressively at stops, cooking your inner thighs in summer conditions. The biggest letdown, however, might be the tech. Harley's Boombox GTS infotainment system looks impressive on paper but performs like something from the early 2010s. It lags, struggles in sunlight, and lacks the intuitive layout found in many competitors' systems. You'll find more user-friendly setups on bikes costing $10,000 less. To make things worse, many desirable features like adaptive cruise control, improved suspension, or radar-based safety aren't standard. Add them through accessories or trims, and you're looking at well over $35,000 out the door. That's premium sport touring money for a bagger that still struggles to feel truly modern. If that felt like a letdown, the next and final bike on this list is even more deceptive. It looks like a dream on paper, but rides like a disappointment in the real world. Number 1, KTM 1290 Super Duke GT. Some motorcycles look like they've cracked the formula. Sport bike performance, long-distance comfort, and everyday usability wrapped in one sleek package. On paper, this one fits that bill perfectly. It promises to be the apex predator of the sport touring segment, delivering hypersport thrills and all-day comfort in equal measure. But as riders quickly find out, those promises come with asterisks. And over time, they start to add up. It's fast, undeniably. The kind of fast that makes you laugh inside your helmet. But the same firepower that makes it blistering on a straight line also introduces problems when you're not riding flat out. What should be a thrilling, refined sport tourer ends up feeling like a barely tamed beast with saddlebags. The KTM 1290 Super Duke GT is powered by a 1,290 cubic centimeter V-twin engine that produces 175 horsepower and 103 pound-feet of torque. It uses a 6-speed transmission with a quick shifter and chain final drive. Dry weight is listed at 499 pounds with a seat height of 32.3 inches. Suspension duties are handled by WP's semi-active electronic system, fully adjustable and adaptive to real-time road input. Braking is managed by dual front discs with Brembo calipers and a single rear disc, all tied into a cornering ABS system. The bike includes cruise control, heated grips, ride modes, lean angle traction control, and a TFT display. Wind protection comes from an adjustable windscreen. Pricing begins just above $20,000, depending on region and trim. And yet, despite the premium hardware and top-tier specs, the ride tells a different story. Throttle response is abrupt, jerky even, in all but the most conservative modes. Fueling inconsistencies at low RPMs only add to the frustration. It's exciting, yes, but refined? Not quite. Then there's the heat. The engine radiates serious warmth, especially when crawling through town or stuck at a red light. Riders in warmer climates report borderline unbearable conditions during summer riding, especially around the lower legs and thighs. For a machine positioned as a long-distance warrior, KTM's lack of heat management feels like a critical oversight. Comfort also takes a hit. The seating position straddles the line between upright touring and aggressive naked, which sounds good in theory, but ends up pleasing no one. The seat is wide but firm and lacks real support for multi-hour hauls. The adjustable windscreen, while functional, offers little in the way of actual wind protection. Buffeting at highway speeds remains a common complaint. With a price tag exceeding $20,000, it lands in direct competition with proven sport tourers from Yamaha, Kawasaki, and BMW, bikes that offer smoother power delivery, better wind protection, and superior touring ergonomics. While the KTM wins in outright horsepower and tech features, it loses when it comes to the daily reality of mixed riding. And that's why so many riders part ways with it after just one season. Online classifieds are filled with gently used models. The reason? It's a bike that tries to be everything and ends up not quite nailing anything. It's too raw to be a true tourer, too bulky to be a proper sport bike, and too expensive to excuse the flaws. Which of these bikes do you think deserves the crown of most overrated? Or is there one we missed? Drop your take in the comments and stay tuned for a follow-up list that exposes even more.